if you do these hacks, you don't actually have to change anything else that you're eating. You don't have to cut out anything. You just add these in. I like to see them like little fairy godmothers that you have in your pocket and you just put throughout your day like this. And you're able to reduce your glucose spikes while still eating what you love in a very low effort kind of way. And I believe these hacks should be seen like you would see: brush your teeth, wear sunscreen, drink enough water, have a savory breakfast, move after eating.
Have a savory breakfast. So are you saying people shouldn't be eating sugar for breakfast?
Correct. So the concept of a savory breakfast comes from the simple realization that if you have a breakfast that creates a big glucose spike, you're affecting your body in many bad ways. First of all, you're leading to your brain not functioning too well during that day. It's leading to brain fog. It can make you a bit confused. Second, it makes you tired. It increases cravings throughout the day, and it also deregulates your glucose levels for the rest of the day. Your breakfast is very powerful. If you have a glucose spike at breakfast, your whole day is a glucose roller coaster. So what you want to do, Stephen, is always have a savory breakfast that keeps your glucose levels steady. A savory breakfast is what? It's based around protein. Eggs, fish, meat, tofu, nuts, dairy, protein powder, dinner leftovers, okay? Protein. It's really important to have protein in the morning. Then you add some healthy fats, olive oil, butter, avocado. And then, if you want, for taste, you can add a bit of starch, like a piece of bread, for example, or some potatoes. Importantly, a savory breakfast contains nothing sweet. No cereal, no muffins, no orange juice, no granola, no fruit puree, none of that. It's really key.
Sugar in my coffee?
No. No. If you want sugar, have it as dessert after a meal, after lunch or after dinner. Because after your lunch and after your dinner, you have lots of food already in the digestive system. So any sugar you put in afterwards is going to impact your glucose levels less.
You said that if I have something sweet for my breakfast, I'm then going to be on a glucose roller coaster.
Yeah.
Why?
Because glucose spike, then insulin comes out and your glucose drop. Then your glucose are low. Here, you get really hungry. You have a lot of cravings. When our glucose levels are dropping, scientists have shown it increases the activity of the craving center in our brain. So it goes like, Stephen, eat some sugar, and you can't control that. So what do? You reach for more sugar. Bam, another glucose spike. And then you just continue your whole day like that. So you sort of put yourself into a corner if you start your day with a spike. And it's really difficult to get off that roller coaster. It's drink 1 tablespoon of vinegar in a big glass of water before your biggest meal of the day. And the reason it's important, Stephen, is because it's easy. And I'm all about easy hacks, big bang for your buck. So vinegar contains acetic acid, which interacts with your digestive enzymes and cuts the glucose spike of your meal by up to 30% with no effort. So if you want a super low effort, albeit not very delicious, super low effort hack to try, do that and see how you feel with a smaller spike and a smaller crash, fewer cravings, less fatigue.
What kind of vinegar?
Any kind of vinegar. It can be the vinegar you have at home. Literally tonight, just grab the white vinegar in your kitchen and not the cleaning vinegar. If it's next to the toilet paper, it's not the right vinegar. You want the kitchen vinegar. 1 tablespoon in a big glass of water, dilute it, drink it 10 minutes before having your dinner, see how you feel.
What role is the water playing in this?
Just dilution so that it doesn't hurt your teeth, because your dentist won't be very happy if you take a shot of vinegar because it can hurt your teeth's enamel.
Okay, so that's hack number 2, and that's really to sort of line my stomach to...
So, no, that's to interact with your digestive enzymes.
Okay.
The lined stomach is the third hack.
Which is?
Veggie starters. So all around the world, if you look at different cultures, you see this habit, this tradition of starting your meal with veggies. In Italy, antipasti. In France, crudité, raw vegetables at the beginning of your meal. In the Middle East, you start your meals with herbs by the bunch, right? Why are we doing this veggies first thing? Well, recently scientists have discovered why it's so powerful. It's because veggies contain fiber. We love fiber. She's the best. When you have fiber at the beginning of a meal, what it does is that it coats your intestine. It makes this sort of protective barrier, this protective mesh, kind of gooey, fibrous mesh. And so any glucose you eat afterwards will not be able to go through your intestine into your bloodstream so quickly. So it slows down the arrival of glucose into your blood, and it slows down that spike. You can make the experiment if you're wearing a monitor. Just have a a small plate of, carrots or spinach or broccoli or cherry tomatoes or whatever veggie you like before a meal and see how much smaller your glucose spike is. You stay fuller for longer, have fewer cravings, and you're helping your body from within too.
And the fourth one you mentioned was moving after you've
eating.
eaten.
Yeah. So after eating, use your body and your muscles for 10 minutes. You can clean your apartment, go for a walk with your dog, dance to a few songs. If you're at the office, you can do calf raises under your desk like this. So you just sort of push up onto the balls of your feet, up and down for 10 minutes. Nobody will see. And your calves contain a muscle called the soleus muscle, which is really good at soaking up glucose. But it's what we were talking about earlier, Stephen. Your muscles are really effective glucose dumps. And the more you use them to contract, the more they're going to soak up glucose from your bloodstream to use for energy. So that's the 4 hacks. Savory breakfast, vinegar once a day, veggie starter once a day. You can also combine those two and do like a vinegar dressing on a veggie starter, and then moving after eating. And then when you want to get pro, you go to all my other hacks.
People talk about being in a food coma after they've eaten.
Yeah.
Which is, the antithesis of what you're saying.
Absolutely.
After
Food coma is like a combination of brain fog and fatigue, right?
And what's going on there?
Well, I think there's a lot of things going on, but one study that's really interesting shows us that in rats, when you create lots of big glucose spikes and when you monitor the activity of their neurons in the rats, scientists noticed that the more glucose spikes they had, the slower the speed of the signal between their neurons. So their brain was literally slowing down. The information was going more slowly throughout the brain, and they theorized that in humans, this could lead to brain fog. So you have glucose spikes linked to brain fog, and your mitochondria becoming exhausted from big glucose spikes, potentially making you really tired, 90 minutes after eating. With the hacks, food coma reduced significantly, so you can actually do stuff after eating instead of just lying down and not being able to get up.
And you took these hacks and you did an experiment, right? On page 7 of your book, The Glucose Goddess Method, you talk about this 2,700 person pilot experiment that you did in 2019.
Yeah.
Which of the hacks did you use for this experiment and what did you find?
So it was these 4 hacks. So it was a 4-week experiment. Week 1, you start your savory breakfast every day. You do that for the 4 weeks. Week 2, you add in vinegar once a day. You continue for the rest of the 3 weeks. Week 3, you add veggie starters. And week 4, you add moving after eating. You don't have to change anything else about what you're eating. I'm not cutting out sugar. I'm not telling you to not drink alcohol. I'm not telling you to not drink pasta. I'm just asking you to add these 4 hacks in and see what happens.
And these people were from 110 countries.
Yeah. I recruited them online through Instagram.
Between the ages of 20 and 70 years old. Mm-hmm. And what happened?
Listen, the results were really stunning. So 90% of people reduced their cravings. 90% of people had more energy. You had really significant impacts on sleep, on hormones, on skin, on mood, on diabetes. Of course, this is not a placebo-controlled randomized trial. It's just an experiment. I didn't have a control group. But these numbers are pretty remarkable. And that's what I see when I meet people, when I see the testimonials from my readers. It's just very quick impact because glucose spikes impact all parts of our system, physical and mental. And when you balance them, Stephen, you're creating a much better foundation for your body and your mind to be healthy.
And these are self-reported symptoms, right?
Totally, yeah. So we did a survey at the end of every of the 4 weeks and just measured the results.
And when you say there's no control group, that means that there wasn't another group who weren't...
Who were doing like a different
like
kind of intervention or a placebo. No.
Okay.
So it was just 3,000 people doing the hacks and I was just asking them questions at the end.
And it says here roughly 40% of people who wanted to lose weight did in fact lose weight in those 4 weeks.
Yeah. With no calorie restriction, no request to eat less. And the reason this is interesting is that even though weight loss is not the primary objective of balancing your glucose levels, what happens when you reduce your spikes is that you reduce cravings, because you're not activating that craving center anymore. You reduce hunger. You have more energy to potentially move more, and you lower your insulin levels. Now, this is very important because when there's insulin present in your body, you cannot burn fat. Insulin is storing fat and making more fat. And when you lower insulin, you can actually burn some of the fat that you stored.
And there's going to be people screaming because they want to know the other sort of 6. There's 10, right?
Yeah, I can go through all of them if you want.
Yeah, if you say what the other 6 are.
Of course. So another hack is eating your food in the right order. Now, this is kind of similar to the veggie starter. It's just a bit more complicated, and it's really what the science shows us. The science shows us that if you eat a meal in the right order, meaning veggies first, then proteins and fats, then starches and sugars, instead of the opposite, you reduce the glucose spike of the meal by up to 75%. You're eating the same meal, the same quantity, the same food, just the order and using that fiber first mentality is going to reduce your spike significantly.
And just to be clear, this doesn't mean that I'm going to gain less weight from that meal.
Well, no, because it doesn't, weight loss doesn't happen within one specific meal, but it does mean you'll have fewer cravings a couple of hours after that meal. So maybe you won't reach for the donut.
Okay.
That's how it would work.
So indirectly, I might not gain more weight.
Exactly. So eating your food in the right order. Okay. Having a savory breakfast, we talked about it. Veggies first, we talked about it. Vinegar, we talked about it. Moving after eating, we talked about it. And then there's close on carbs. So that means anytime you eat starches or sugars, which are the big category of carbs, make sure you're never eating them naked or on their own. Because if you eat them on their own, poof, they just turn into glucose really, really quickly. So instead of having a slice of bread on its own, have bread and some avocado. Add some fat to that. That's a good clothing to add. Or add some protein or add some fiber. If you're having a carrot cake, don't have it on its own. Have it with a Greek yogurt, for example. So that's close on carbs. It's really easy to remember, especially if you're going throughout your day and you can't really pick what you're eating because you don't have many options. Just think close on carbs. Then we have savory snacks. So during a day, if you want to have a snack between meals when your stomach is empty, try to have something savory that won't increase your glucose spikes instead of having something sweet. Then another hack that we kind of touched on is if you want to eat something sweet, have it as dessert instead of on an empty stomach. So if I want a cookie or a carrot cake, I will make sure to buy it in the morning if I know where I want to get it from, and then have it as dessert after my lunch or after my dinner. So I'm not removing any of the sugar from your life. I'm just showing you how and when to eat it, so it will reduce the glucose spike. And then we have always eat your fruit whole. Never juiced, never dried, never smoothied, only whole to have that protective fiber in there.
Thinking about your Instagram, you post these photos of glucose spikes with in response to different foods. How do you trial that? Is that...
Oh, great question.
Are those your spikes?
Yeah, those are my spikes or the spikes from somebody on my team. But it's really important to note that these spikes are just illustrating studies, trials that have been done by scientists around the world. So for example, I'll find a clinical trial showing that vinegar before a meal reduces a glucose spike. It's been shown at scale with a placebo, proper clinical study. And I'll just make an example with my own data to illustrate that scientific study. And that's why if you swipe on my post, you'll see my graph and then the study that I mentioned or in the description of the post. I don't draw any conclusions from my own glucose data. I'm not like, oh, look, today I had a green tea and that didn't cause a spike. And yesterday I had a green tea and I also had a piece of, an almond and that caused a bigger spike. So I should be telling everybody to not have almonds. Like that's not how it works at all. It's just an illustration of existing studies. That's my role. That's my job. That's what I love to do, to translate studies that are existing in a way that makes it easier for people to understand. Because you can't just give somebody a scientific paper. You have to explain it in a visual way that they can immediately get it.
So of those visuals that you've made, is there some in particular that were most surprising to you or most shocking to you? Because I'm going to put some of them on the screen. So some of them that come to mind that were maybe had the biggest response from your audience, for example.
Yeah, I think some of the ones that show traditional food combinations and how they're actually good for our glucose levels are fascinating. For example, grapes and cheese. So I'm French, and often when you eat like a big plateau of cheese, you'll have some grapes there to have with. And the glucose response shows us that if we had the grape on its own, it would be a bigger spike than the grape with the cheese. Not only is it really delicious, it's also better for your glucose levels because you're putting clothing on that sugary carb that is the piece of fruit. Or ham and melon, or rice and beans. All these traditional combinations cause smaller spikes than you would expect from the individual ingredients. That's really quite fascinating. In terms of the most shocking ones, I think any glucose graph showing food order is really interesting. So for example, if you have salad and then pasta, which is much better for your glucose levels than having pasta and then the salad.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's the food order hack going on.
Do you know off the top of your head what your most engaged post has been of all time? The one that's been shared the most or commented on the most? Or
Actually, it's one currently, at least on YouTube, it's one where I show an image of an ancestral banana, what bananas used to actually look like in nature and what bananas look like today to illustrate that the fruit that you find today in the supermarket is not natural. So that's a very, very popular one. And then I think it's the hacks, it's the glucose graphs and the videos where I explain food order. People really love that. It's so interesting to see that if you have your veggies at the beginning of a meal, you have such a big impact on your glucose levels. Whereas we've all been taught that all your food mixes in your stomach and makes this like big smoothie and it doesn't matter. Well, it does actually.
Yeah, because that's really easy to change as well.
Totally. You don't have to change what you're eating, how much you're eating. Just next time you're sat at a meal, think, oh, I'm going to have the veggies on my plate first. That's it. So powerful. These hacks are so easy, Stephen. I really want everybody to know them. I want to become irrelevant. I don't want to have any more work because everybody knows these hacks. It's so important for our public health.
I think some vinegar has arrived for you to shot.
Yeah? No, we can't shot it, Stephen. We have to dilute it.
I'll dilute it as well. Let me quickly get some.
Go for it.
Yes, so this is cider vinegar.
But any vinegar works. You don't have to buy expensive vinegar. It doesn't have to be organic, unfiltered, whatever. Just kitchen vinegar works.
Can I try it straight? I've actually never really drinking.
Okay, but if your dentist is upset, it's not my fault.
Okay, well, so Jessie told me to drink this straight.
No.
She's an expert. She said she's a scientist. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do that, Stephen.
No, I'm sorry. No, it's been really lovely getting to... Imagine if... But it's not that bad, but it's not something that I would do for fun.
Yeah, but also if you want to have vinegar straight, you need to get higher quality vinegar. There's some vinegars that taste really, really good. But in our case, we're just trying to get the acetic acid and we don't need high quality, expensive vinegar. We can just do like really cheap vinegar. And this is we just put 1 tablespoon. This is a good hack if you have a parent that has diabetes and they don't want to change anything about their lifestyle. Just get them to add this before their meals when they're eating carbs and you'll see a good impact on their glucose levels. Okay, so I'm mixing it like this.
You didn't put much in there.
I put a tablespoon. It's a tablespoon.
And even that small amount, it looked like you kind of filled the lid.
I filled the lid twice, basically, which is approximately 1 tablespoon, I think. Because this is probably like, this is half a tablespoon, I would say.
Okay.
I've done this before. And now you can't taste anything.
You're telling me that will have an impact?
Absolutely. And the studies prove it.
I can't taste anything.
Yeah.
Maybe because I just had the big shot. I think so. That's probably why. but
Totally, Stephen. I even meet people on the street or like my readers and stuff, and they'll show me that in their purse they have a little bottle of vinegar they take with them. It's super easy. And I was very skeptical, and I think everybody was super skeptical about the vinegar thing until the studies were widely read. It's an amazing ingredient that's been used for millennia for its health benefits, but now we understand how it works. It has impact on visceral fat, on cholesterol levels, on glucose, and on insulin levels. It's a magical ingredient. It's super cheap, so have some vinegar. But be very careful. Now, a lot of big brands are jumping on this and are making vinegar drinks that have sugar in them. So you want straight vinegar. You don't want anything that has even a tiny bit of apple juice or sugar. Straight vinegar.
You said visceral fat.
Yeah.
Is that belly fat?
Yeah, it's the fat between your organs. It's the fat that's really bad for you. So you can have fat that is sort of on the outside of your body and you can grab it. Mm-hmm. You can grab it and you can really pinch it.
Speak for yourself.
No, I totally have some nice fat here that I can grab. Yeah. So this fat, I can grab.
Yeah.
Visceral fat is underneath my muscle layer. And you would know if somebody has visceral fat if they have kind of a big, hard belly. Okay. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
And they just but if you touch it, you can't make it into a roll. That's visceral fat. That's between your organs, and that's really bad for you. So vinegar helps. Of course, this is not a magic solution that's going to fix all your issues and, prevent a ton of diseases. It's a good ally to have. And I'm all about little allies you bring with you, gentle giants you have throughout your day that are going to help you get to health in an easy, manageable way.